This video is all about the Selene 59. Hey everybody, I'm James Knight, and here we are back on the ramp at Cap Sante Marina. It's Sunday afternoon, Labor Day weekend, and you probably recognize this ramp from one of our first videos on the 62. I was rolling down this ramp on my one wheel. Anyway, you probably know the story now. 3 years in Anacortes, Washington. It's summertime here now, and we don't want to be in Florida. So we have a whole load of Nordhavns up here in Anacortes. We've now got this whole head dock here in front of Anthony's. This 62 here, Tesla came in from Kodiak a few days ago. We got a good old list on that. It's going to keep us busy over the winter. And then this 57, I went over to Canada a couple of days ago and picked it up. We brought it in here, Matthew and I. And his brother Alex have been doing headliner panels. Oh, and Jason as well. So we've got full headliner job going on that boat, as we have on several other of the boats as well. And we got so we've got that 57 there. We've got a couple of other boats around the corner. We've got the 64 here that we have headliners going on here also. We did talk about this swim step just on the last 64 video, but here it is, Vicky J, and there's Kimball sitting on the back deck there. Give us a wave. So you actually get to see the swim step, and you can really appreciate how big that swim step is and what an amazing difference it makes to the back of the 64. And so we're going to keep on moving, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my arrival in Anacortes, Washington 3 years ago. I bought a house a little before Nordhavn opened their office up here. And I decided that after 20 years in South Florida, I was going to make a change, and I was going to come to Anacortes. And one of the reasons that I like Anacortes, other than the weather and the people, is the boats. There are so many boats up here, and of course Nordhavns are everywhere, as you can see. In fact, you can look through there and you can see there's another 62 right there. That's the Undine that was next to the 62 that we took the video of one day. And Alioli just pulled in the 52. We've got Gary coming back this afternoon on his Coastal Starlight. Dan and Julie are over on the other side of the island. Actually, they're cruising up in Alaska right now. This is the gateway to BC and Alaska. It's an amazing place. So the other thing that really caught my attention was, and as you know, I've been doing Nordhavns now for over 20 years. So I know a little bit about Nordhavns, enough to share on these videos, and but I'm sort of keen to learn about other boats. So it was interesting that I showed up here in Anacortes, and there was a gentleman here that owns a Selene. Now, he previously had a Nordhavn 52, and this is his Selene 59. This is a 2007 Selene 59. It actually has Selene 60 plates on the side of it, and it's over 60 feet. I think it's about 64 feet. Hull number 1. So people are always skeptical about hull number 1, but I got to tell you, I've been through the boat. And I'm actually very surprised that this, being hull number 1, doesn't have a whole lot really wrong with it. I mean, they got it all laid out properly. It's it seems like they had their act together when they built this boat. So it does surprise me that it's hull number 1. Anyway, let's step on board. I really do like this access door back here in the transom. When you're working on the boat, as I did the first year, I haven't done very much for the last year and a half or so on this boat. We've been working on Nordhavns, but when I first came to Anacortes, Tom had just bought the boat, and he had a few glitches, and I came in and went through his list, and so I was in and out of this engine room quite a lot. And when you arrive early in the morning and the owner's on board with his wife having their coffee or whatever, it's really nice to be able to just open up the back door and let yourself in, head down to the engine room. You don't have to go through the boat. A really nice feature of these boats. Not all of them, but some of them, is to have this door. Now, people are obviously skeptical. Some people are skeptical about these back doors because it's a leak point in a following sea. Do you really want to have a back door, a big hole in the back of the boat? But it certainly seems like it's been done well. Jet Turn Marine, I think they probably, like Nordhavn, do all their own stainless steel work. I'm pretty sure that they were they had something to do with cutlery, silverware, and so I believe that all their stainless work is done in-house. It certainly seems very nice, just like Nordhavn. They do a good job, and the brackets and the hinges for the door here are all nice and solid, counterbalanced like the Nordhavn stuff. And I don't see that door would be an issue in a big C once it's all latched down. It's very heavy, very solidly done. I don't want to say beefy, because we used that word in the last video, but this boat is quite chunky. That's the word. Alright, we're going to move on in, and then we'll end up coming back around this way on the way back out. Let's have a quick look. There's nothing under this side. The other side, on the starboard side, has a capstan in it, which I thought was well thought out. This has a saltwater washdown right there that I think Tom was talking about taking out. A port access, don't fall off, a port access there for the cockpit. The cockpit's rather small, in my opinion, for a 60-foot boat. So under here, there's a little electric capstan, which is quite nicely done. Right. It looks like it originally had a little gas shock here that's been taken out. Probably needs to have a new one put in. Okay, so that snaps down. Okay. And then you will notice as you go around the Selene that the stainless work, as we talked about, is everywhere. There are little things that have been done by Selene, made by Selene, like these little pop-up cleats on the back here. Oh yeah, we didn't look in the swim stick. And the thresholds, like we talked about on Ammonite on the Nordhavn 78. Let me just pull up the swim step and show you. So this also will show you how solid the boat is. My goodness, that probably weighs about 30 pounds. It's a little bit grungy in there. Obviously you've got following sea, it's going to bring water up in there, but there's a gas shock, and there you've got your boarding ladder. So a swimmer, if you did fall in the water and need to get that swim ladder out, you can. So that's quite well thought out. And again, this is a heavy top. Okay, shore power. There is a Glendinning back there, so that's our shore power access. Oh, and you might notice that there is no shore power cord plugged in. I noticed that this morning. Tom's showing off because he has a lithium-ion battery system on this boat that keeps him going for at least 2 days with everything running. So he actually unplugged the boat yesterday. We were going to come down to the boat this morning and do a video. There's no shore power cord plugged in. He hasn't been plugged in, and I think the batteries are sitting at about 70% right now. So that's why there's no cord plugged in. He's got a deck shower back there. And on into the cockpit. Come on in, because I'm going to close this door and I'm going to show you these latches here. So everything, again, that's been done in stainless has been done quite well. These little buttons here and locks are locking the latches so they can't come undone. I think superior to Nordhavn. The teak work on top, of course Tom has spent quite a lot of time and money getting it really nice, but the joinery work, as with any boat built in China, I think, you know, it's exquisite. It really is. This 59 cockpit does seem a little bit small, but you know, we probably talked about it a little bit before with the Nordhavns. There's a good reason for having a small cockpit. If you're in a big following sea, you don't want a bathtub back here. So, you know, some people might complain that the cockpit's just too small for them, but there's a reason for it, and I completely understand. These boats have quite high freeboard, so you're a long way up on this boat for a 59-foot boat. You're a long way up, and you've got wide walkways down both port and starboard. Port and starboard walkways means that you do have quite a small salon. So when we get in there, you're going to see the salon is not generously sized. It's fairly small for a 60-foot boat. So Tom had these made to up in the Pacific Northwest. Obviously, when the wind blows, it can get pretty cold. This keeps the cockpit nice and secure. And you don't have as much wind blowing through there. This is a Selene thing that I've seen on a lot of the Selenes, where the fender lines come through here and then you've got this cam plate to hold it. That's a really nice feature. I don't know for sure whether these were made by Jet Turn. I'm assuming that they were. I gotta tell you, they're gorgeous. The window frames, this is a 2007 boat, and the window frames look like they're brand new. They have not been changed. These have to be original. You know, just like the Nordhavn 50 that has stainless window frames, they look like they did when they were brand new. This was something that I talked about on the 58 Selene that we sold in Florida. Matthew and I took a little look at it just briefly, and it has this little catch point here, which there's a couple of oil pads in there, but when you're filling with diesel, this boat carries 2,200 gallons of fuel, and in 2 tanks, port and starboard. And when you're filling the tank, obviously if you have a little burp there, it drops right into that little catch that we talked about before, and I love that. These cleats, these hose pipes, look at the hose pipes. They're well made, and they also have Selene written on them. I mean, they've got Selene printed on everything, so that just shows you that they're made in-house. And they do a fine job. This, I don't believe, is a diamond sea glaze door, but I gotta say, unlike the Chinese doors that I've seen on some of the Nordhavns, and Nordhavn has used diamond sea glaze and still continues to use diamond sea glaze, and they've done a great job. Some of the doors that were replaced by the Chinese manufacturers' doors did not last very long. These, I'm guessing, are Chinese manufactured doors. They seem to have done very well, so their coatings have lasted, unless they've been redone, but I don't believe so. There is a little bit of corrosion next to the stainless steel hinges. Of course, stainless and aluminum, anytime you put them together, you're asking for trouble. But they do seem to have weathered quite well over the years. 13, 14 years old this boat is, so it's not a surprise to see a little corrosion. Handrails. There are stainless handrails wherever you think that it might be appropriate to have them. I'm glad to see that they didn't put them around on the Portuguese bridge on the top of the cap rail. Some manufacturers do put those rails around on the top of the cap rail, and it just makes it very, very difficult to keep varnish on the cap rail. There's all kinds of opportunities for water to get in the teak and ruin the varnish, and it's a lot more difficult to keep the varnish up. So having the railing back here against the cabin makes a whole lot of sense. This is, I'm small, but it's an ample walkway. There's lots of space here. The windshield wipers look fantastic. Oh, I think maybe that's because Yacht just replaced them. Thanks, Jason. They do look good. The window frames look good. The gel coat looks great. There's a little bit of bubbling. Not that I haven't seen this on Nordhavns as well, but there's a little bit of bubbling on that door. Not quite sure what happened there. I don't think this is painted. I believe that this is gel coat, so there's a little bit of moisture in that door. So, but that's easily fixed. And then we do have control stations out here also. We're going to go to the foredeck in a second. So we've got wing stations on here. They've even got Selene printed on their control station there. That's quite a nice touch. And then of course this boat, you can see, has American bow thruster, bow and stern thruster. It does not have windlass controls up here at the Portuguese bridge station, but that's fine. We do have steering. I like having steering out here. And then up on the deck here, up on the bow, you've got a little seating area, which is kind of cool. And then we've got a Maxwell 3500 horizontal double windlass. And like I said, downstairs, down at the back there, this boat has 400 aside, 800 feet of half-inch chain. Now, there's a number of Nordhavns that I find, and people have commented to me, you know, what's going on with them. They tend to have a nose-down attitude, which to me suggests there's perhaps a little too much buoyancy in the stern, not quite enough buoyancy in the bow. I mean, look at them. Particularly the 55 Twin, actually, that has an extra fuel tank up forward. When you fill the fuel tanks on a 55 Twin, they do tend to nose down. So this boat actually sits quite trim, even with 800 feet of half-inch chain up here. So they got something right here for sure. Twin anchors. Looks like we got a 50 kilo Bruce up there on the starboard side. That looks like a Delta. And then another shore power connection up there on starboard, and in here we've got looks like salt water and fresh water, and then there's a connection here that looks like it's probably for remote for controlling the windlass, and then a capstan on top as well. Not only do we just have the horizontal, but we've also got a 3500 electric capstan on top, which would be really nice for med mooring or pulling the boat in if it's windy. So when you look inside the chain locker on these boats, you can see the attention to detail. I mean, who cares about the chain locker, right? You look inside these chain lockers and there's a teak grill in there so that you can put your rod on top and it'll drain down into the chain locker. That's a really thoughtful thing to do. The wiring is all neat and tidy in here. Everything's, you know, electrical is tucked up underneath, so out of the weather and out of the way. So that's good. And, you know, these hatches are quite solid as well. Let's have a look in this one real quick. Probably something similar down here. Yep, so he's got some lines in there, and obviously, you know, where do you put your wet lines? When you've got a locker like this that has this teak grill, it's not a grating, but it's a teak grill under there, which is nicely finished. When you've got a place like this where you can put your wet lines and the water can drop through, drain through, I mean, if you leave the lid open on the hatch open on a sunny day, that is a perfect spot to put your lines and let them dry out. I like that. All right.
Oh. We weren't recording the whole time.
Rubbish. You recording now?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time with this because, you know, I'm a Nordhavn guy and I'm surrounded by Nordhavns. I feel a bit out of place on this Selene, but so far so good. But that is a nice 64 right there. Look at that. So this door here is actually cable tied shut. I think Tom had a bad experience perhaps with this door coming open, which I don't know why, because it does seem like it would latch thoroughly, but he said it's a dangerous door and he leant against it one time and it came open, which of course is a disaster if something like that happens. So he's got it cable tied shut. Nice wide walkways. We have the same situation here with the diesel fill. Nice little catch reservoir there if you have a little spillage, which is nice to have when you've got teak decks, because you don't want to get that diesel on the teak, right? And then back here we've got an aft control station. This sucker, this just shows you, I mean, this is I did mention sometimes Nordhavn overbuilds things. Well, I think Selene does the same thing, because look at the thickness and the weight of that sucker. I think it's overbuilt. But anyway, it's there, and they did put a nice little drain in there so that if it does get wet, it drains away. No windlass control. Really should have a windlass control. Okay, so I'm sitting back here thinking while Matthew's changing his battery, and you know, this is it's a nice cockpit and it's quite comfortable. I can definitely, you know, see a couple of people sitting back here having a glass of wine at the end of the day. However, I'm not sure if you've got like a couple with you, or, you know, it's a 3-stateroom boat, so you got extra people. I'm not quite sure where they're going to sit, you know. If you had a couple of, I guess you could put some bar stools or something, but this table is high, and as you can see, it's raised up on a pedestal here, so, you know, 1, 2, 3 would be too many. You got 2 people back here sitting having a chat, you know, no problem. Having a third person, you could probably sit on the stairs over there, and you could maybe put a bar stool or something, but it isn't particularly well laid out for having, you know, drinks and a get-together back here. It's just not, you know, there's not enough space. So then you're into the salon, and as you're going to see, the salon is quite small. It is lovely, but it's small. So let's talk a little bit about how I came to be on this boat again. I mentioned it briefly out on the dock, but Tom the owner of this boat, he had reached out to me some years ago now, probably 3 or 4 years ago, and was interested in buying a bigger Nordhavn. He had a 52 Nordhavn over in Europe, and he subsequently sold the 52 through Nordhavn Europe. But we remained in touch. I'd never met him. I'd only spoken to him on the phone. And then it's so, it was just odd. I showed up in Anacortes for right after I bought my house here, and he happened to have just bought this Selene from Frank Dirksen, my partner Frank Dirksen up here at AAA Yacht Finders. Ironically, this Selene was sold to Tom by the father of the gentleman that owns the 64 next door, who has become a very good customer of ours. That's Vicky J. You heard me talking about that in the last video as well. So I stepped aboard this boat. Tom invited me on. What do you think? How does it compare to a Nordhavn? So I have sort of been making comparisons now for the last 3 years between Selenes and Nordhavns, and again was lucky enough to go out for a ride on the boat. So it's been very interesting, and after 20 years working on Nordhavns, I really was looking forward actually to coming up here and being able to work on some other boats and make comparisons. So anyway, let's head on inside the boat now. We haven't done the boat deck and the flybridge yet, but we'll do that at the end. I want to get inside and show you around because there's a lot of things about this boat that I'm pretty excited to show you. So come on in and we'll take a look. As I said, the salon is not that big. For a 59 or 60 foot boat, actually 60, I think Tom said it's 64 overall, it's quite a small salon. That's okay. It's compact. One of the reasons that it's so small is because it is a double walk around boat, and they are generous walkways. So it's not like you're squeezing to get around the sides of the boat when you're working on fenders and lines and stuff. It's quite easy to do. It's quite comfortable out there, but it does mean that it's a bit smaller in here, and it's very difficult to see in a video. It's difficult to get an idea of space in a video, I know, because of the lens and everything, but you can see I thought the 63 salon actually is a little bit small, but it's considerably bigger than this. But having said that, it's comfortable. So you got a couple of easy chairs over there, and you got a nice couch here, and this beautiful table that we refinished last winter in our shop. Jason did this. It's a work of art actually, and it's a high-low table. This was not working when we got a hold of the Selene. Tom was really adamant that he wanted this lift mechanism to work, so we got it working. But we have found out since that there are a number of people that are having issues with this lift mechanism. And then we took the table completely apart, took all the leaves out of it. This piece folds in. It's very ingenious actually. This piece folds in and then it slides together. So we took it all apart, and Jason sprayed it over the winter, and it looks gorgeous. Did a nice job there. Pop-up TV on the port side. The granite is superb. I gotta say, the woodwork in general is stunning. At least as good as a Nordhavn. I mean, one of the things that I love about Nordhavns is the carpentry and the interior woodwork, and I would say that Selene does just as nice a job. And also I find that, it's solid. It's solid. And for a 2007 boat, and this boat has hours on it, it's had 1, 2, 3, I think this Tom's a 4th owner. And it's had some time put on it and been lived on. It really is in nice shape. It doesn't creak and groan. The galley again is a little tight. A bit disappointing to see a Force 10 stove in a boat of this caliber. I really feel like they could have put. This is a sailboat stove. Let's face it. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you would expect to find in a Beneteau 473, just like Sapphire. In fact, I think I may have had the same stove in my sailboat. It's a sailboat stove. It doesn't really belong in a Selene 59. But anyway, it's nice and clean, and it does the job. It does the job. The trash compactor looks like it's right out of a Nordhavn. It's a brown trash compactor. He's probably going to be looking for a trunnion nut before long, and I can tell you where to get them. You can't buy them on the internet anymore. There's none left, but we do make them in Florida. Tony Fields has made a bunch of them. So if you have a brown trash compactor and you own a Selene and the trunnion nut fails, which it will because it's plastic, we have them. So you don't have to throw it away, because I know it's tricky to find a trash compactor the same size to go in that slot. So we do fix them. It's got a real refrigerator, Sub-Zero, just like we do on the Nordhavns, and then it's got two freezer drawers. And I quite like the fact that it's up high, so you're not reaching down to it. I quite like that. Although you got to be if you're short, you know, it's going to be tough getting stuff off the top shelf and pressing the buttons. That is quite high, isn't it? I don't think I've ever seen a boat that has a refrigerator that high, actually. I don't think Lou Goodwin would be able to reach those buttons. What we got down here? Good use of storage, good use of space, you know. Got a little storage down in there. Looks like you can get deep down. They got paper towels in there. We have spices and stuff, cups. Yeah, that's all good. Lots of headroom. My goodness. You know, I think there may be almost as much, maybe more headroom in this boat. I can't even reach the ceiling, overhead I should say, than a 55. Now, where Matthew's standing, and how tall are you, Matthew?
6'3".
6'3". I would say Matthew in the salon there has a good, I don't know if I can turn this around here. How much? You probably have about 8 to 10 inches above your head there. So, no foam. You know what that means, Matthew? We don't have to do headliners on this boat. That's not good. I think you should incorporate foam into your headliners, Selene, so that they'll fail and we can redo them. These they don't feel like they're going to fail. All right, so we're going to go up to the pilot house real quick, and then we'll go down to the cabin. Oh, we've got two options here. I'd forgotten. So there's just like some of the Nordhavns, you've got two options to go through to the forward cabins. So I like the pilot house. I like it. Again, plenty of headroom. I think this is the area where perhaps some of these Selenes, you know, they need to have a little touch up. It looks like there's been some done there. This is an opening window, you can see. It slides back and forth. You know, it's a little bit cheesy, but it's fine. Solid glass. And then the water pools back in there over time, and there's a little bit of discoloration in the wood that's been touched up. There's also looks like a pilot berth back in there in the back of the pilot house. If you've got, it doesn't look like a full size, but if you've got kids or something, you want to have an extra person staying on the boat, there you go. Probably fit up there. I don't think Matthew would fit in there. When I first got on the boat, I did spend a little bit of time down in here, and pretty good access to your electrical and your electronics. Down under the dash here, you can actually climb in and move around. Everything's reasonably well laid out. Great access in there. You've got controls of the chargers and generators up here, and the CFAR, the fireboy system, battery monitoring, alarms, bilge alarms, and what have you. This boat has a hurricane heater that you'll see down in the engine room. That's a hurricane heater system up here. That's your Spectra water maker control, which is located back in the lazarette, which is another really nice thing about this boat that I like, that I'll show you. VHF radio. Now, he had a Maritron system put in a year, 2 years ago. So this is his Maritron monitoring. Now, this boat also has a wing engine. Okay, I was watching a video by Northern Marine the other day that they put out regarding wing engines versus hydraulic drive from the main shaft, which I found quite interesting, and I'd like to talk to them about that actually. And they were also talking about wet exhaust versus dry stack, which everybody wants to talk about, and I have my opinions on that as well. So we could talk about that in the engine room a little bit. This boat does have a wing engine. A lot of Selenes have a hydraulic backup drive from the generator PTO, and I found a problem with that, so we can talk about it. So that's the wing engine control. Over here we've got, most of the electronics on here are new. So he's got Maritron monitoring. Right now he's got the cameras up so he can watch what's going on outside of the boat and down in the engine room, which is great. Charting and radar. Again, a steering station here, so he's got the follow-up on the Simrad autopilot, which is great. This boat really is a lovely boat to drive, by the way. Main engine and wing engine all on one. Thrusters, of course, ABT thrusters. The boat has a 6125 John Deere engine that is rated for 525 horsepower, I think. We'll go down and look at it. And anyway, he's got his FLIR and his wiper controls and searchlight, and that about covers it up here in the pilot house. Let's take a quick look up on the flybridge and then we'll head downstairs. Now we're talking. Downstairs in the back of the boat, yeah, good for two to sit and have a drink. If you've got more than two people and you want to sit down and have a drink, cocktail, chat, here it is. So you're not going to be on the back deck apparently, you're going to be up on the flybridge. This is much more spacious, and of course it's all been enclosed now, so he has this beautiful enclosure done by Canvas Supply down in Seattle. I think Brian did this enclosure, and he did, although it was a little slow to come through, I think, did a superb job on this. They do nice work. The seating area, of course, these tables can be dropped down, I believe. Yeah, they can drop in and make it smaller, but this is a great spot. So now you can probably turn those around, I would imagine. Those will turn around, and then you've got this beautiful seating area, probably space for 6 or 8 people up here to sit and chat and enjoy dinner even. And with this open, you got plenty of air up here. I would say down in the tropics, obviously this all unzips, you can take it all down. This is a nice area and really well presented. I mean, the woodwork is lovely. These are obviously made by Selene and still look fantastic. They've got the Selene label on them. Not sure how comfortable they are. Yeah, probably not as comfortable as a Stid. Looks like a little chart storage under here. That's cool. And again, all the stainless work looks really nice. A little shield on the compass, that's cool. That's a nice touch. Chain counter, forward-looking infrared, searchlight, clarion speaker control, autopilot, navnet, thrusters, stabilizer, centering, main engine control so you can monitor everything start and stop, lighting, main engine control. Yeah, it's all here. And the hardtop looks nice. It's curved, it's got a lot of camber to it, which is probably a good thing. Of course, when you're in the Pacific Northwest, you need all this stuff because it can get a little chilly up here. So having this area up here all enclosed gives you a whole nother living area, which is really nice. The old Aratex davit. Looks like right off of a Nordhavn. Only it doesn't have the stainless steel finish that I love so much. I think if you're going to have an Aratex davit, why wouldn't you have a stainless steel one? As soon as you put paint on it, it's something that you got to take care of. If you had a nice stainless steel polished Aratex davit, all you got to do is polish it up and it'll look like brand new. Well, I said in another video about Aratex davits, I quite like them. I think they're great pieces of equipment. Some of the internal workings of them need to be replaced once in a while, but good choice. Alright, what do we got here? It's an odd place to have a refrigerator. But anyway, a refrigerator and looks like a little ice box there. I suppose that's a bit difficult to get in. It doesn't sound like it gets used very much. I wonder why. Probably because it's in an awkward spot. And then this is the walkway down to the aft deck underneath this canvas, which has been closed off to keep that aft cockpit area warm in the winter. Alright, let's head on in and we'll take a look downstairs. go down. Before we go down, I was thinking about this 64 next to us. I really do like the flybridge on that 64. It's I think I mentioned it in the last video, a very commanding position up there. But I gotta say, I think that this flybridge is probably more livable. There's more space, more seating. The seating is, you've got a view. You can't see over the dash still. It's not quite as low down as on the 64. But I think as far as a livable, usable flybridge, it's probably a little bit better. So, that's my opinion. And if you want to compare the 59 to a 57 Nordhavn, well, quite honestly, I love the 57 Nordhavn, but there's no comparison. This boat is a much more livable boat, in my opinion, than the 57 Nordhavn. I shouldn't say that because I'm a Nordhavn guy, but I like this, you know. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what can you do with a Selene. Why is it that when people want to cross oceans, they buy Nordhavns? Why is that? I mean, let's face it. I would say 95% of people out there that are considering crossing oceans buy Nordhavns. You gotta ask yourself why. Alright, so we're gonna go down the forward stairs here, and I'm gonna take my socks off because wearing socks inside of a boat on slippery teak floors is not a good idea. Matthew. Alright, handrails are really nice, varnished wood. What do we got? What do we got in here? Oh, you know, it's interesting, there's little storage lockers everywhere. They certainly use all the space. Yeah, just little lockers. They just put them wherever they can. That's always good. Of course, it means you can't find stuff because you never know where it is. There's so many lockers to put it in. Wow, this boat really is nice. I don't know how you it. Again, it's really difficult to show on a video, but it's a great use of space. So, of course, they have it nicely laid out with the bedding and everything, but the woodwork is stunning. It's got this walk-around queen, which, I'm trying to figure out which boat to compare it to. It's sort of just different from all of that. I guess probably close to a Nordhavn 60. Right? I mean, Selene 60, Selene 59, Nordhavn 60. The 64 forward cabin is very, very different to this. There are a couple of 55s out there that have walk-around queens. I'm guessing the 60s. They probably did that on some 60s as well. This cabin is smaller. It is smaller. It doesn't have an ensuite. That head and shower on the starboard side there is shared with the guest cabin, like the 57 Nordhavn. Lots of storage up here, hanging lockers, cedar lined, very similar to Nordhavn. Nicely done. The head and shower, perfectly sized, I think. You know, I can't say I would want it any other way. Handholds, towel rails, nice granite. I love the fact that they've used Tecma heads. They're great heads. Of course, Nordhavn uses them too. Okay, so here's our second guest stateroom, which is a couple of bunk beds. But they're nicely sized. Yep. I think that you could probably sleep in here, Matthew. Yep, plenty of space there. No problem for kids. It's quite a big cabin actually, and then you've got this desk area as well. So for a lot of people, they're never going to use this cabin. It's probably just going to end up a storage room, but you have a separate desk. So not only can your guests have a stateroom up forward, because normally it's just another couple, but then you still have the desk area. So if you want to get away from it and come down and shut yourself away and work on something on a laptop, computer, or whatever, you've still got this desk area that you can use. The wood I've already said about the wood. The wood's just, it takes your breath away. It really does. The workmanship, the craftsmanship. All right, so this is the master stateroom. Master stateroom, middle of the boat. It's in the right place. This is where you want it, right? It's got another desk area, well lit. Lots of storage in here. I remember climbing into that locker to change toilet hoses. I like this little desk area. Then in behind, well, I'll go around this way and we'll look at the head real quick. So another, this actually I think is smaller than the guest head. It's not bad, it's okay. It's not bad. And then what's interesting on this boat, it's funny, but Tom and Dina have a cat called Dobby, and so this is one of the few boats that you come on, because often I'm a cat person as well. My wife likes cats, and oftentimes when you get on a boat where the owners have cats, you can tend to smell it, right? This boat does not smell like cat, and you know what? Because they've trained Dobby to use the toilet. This toilet actually has a little bit of non-skid on the toilet seat so that Dobby can hold himself over the top of the toilet when he's using it. And then, so he'll use the toilet and then he stands by and waits for you to come and meow and tell you to come down and flush it for him. He doesn't want to leave the area until the toilet's been flushed. So I said to Tom, we've got to figure out a way that there's a button for him to be able to flush the toilet. That would be like the ultimate, right? If your cat used the toilet and was able to flush it. Anyway, so number one, he uses, I can't remember which one it is, but number one, he uses the forward toilet. Number two, he uses the master toilet. What a cat. It's all lovely. It's all nice and clean. It's all organized. It's well laid out. TV down in here. This has some kind of counterbalance system in it, which I thought was pretty cool. So you drop that down and you've got your TV there. Okay, so I got to talk about under the floor. More important than anything else, in my opinion, what's going on down there. All right, I'm going to pull this up and we're going to look, because this is one of the things that struck me when I first got on the Selene, because we were doing toilet hoses and we ended up, I did some wiring and what have you, and I changed out inverters because the inverters weren't doing what they were supposed to. They weren't the right kind of inverters. Anyway, what I found about this Selene 59 was under the floor here, you don't want to be going down here if you're claustrophobic, but you can get down in this area, right? And you can actually go all the way aft to almost to the engine room, or you can go all the way forward up here. I can see almost to the chain locker. So running wiring and hosing, here's the compass for the one of the autopilots right here above me. The tankage is all down here, so we've got grey water and black water and freshwater tank. I can see everything. So if I want to go and do something up here, I can work my way all the way forward. Okay, so we got air conditioning pumps down here. We got through holes that we can get to. Obviously, he's got some ballast up here. There's strainers. There's pumps. All the hoses. Toilet controls. Flush valves, toilet discharge valves, tankage, batteries, bilge pumps. It's all down here. I love it. So I sold a 58 Selene recently in Florida, and just for Christmas, and I was somewhat disappointed that it didn't have this area down here, because I was excited about the fact that Selene puts these areas in their boats. Well, apparently they're not on all of them, but certainly on the 59 and 60, I think they have this area, and it just makes such a huge difference when you're working on the boat trying to pull wires, or if you're troubleshooting, what have you. It's really nice to be able to go down there and see everything and be able to get to it all. All right, let's work our way aft. So this goes, and we'll go back up there in a minute, but that goes back up to the salon. There's a cool area. So you coming aft now, just in front of the engine room. So here's the engine room door. We've got an area that we'll probably call the utility area, I would say. So I spent quite a lot of time in this area working on these inverters. In fact, I put these inverters in and pulled out the old ones. I haven't worked on the stabilizers, at least I don't think I have. on this boat, but super easy access if you do want to get to a stabilizer. Certainly on the port side stabilizer, check that out. That's pretty nice to be able to get in there like that. But there's still look at that, there's still building debris down there, or somebody's been cutting holes. It's always nice when people cut holes and then clean up after themselves and don't leave crap like that laying around. Then you've got electrical fuses right there. This is definitely the electrical room. So I think Greg Harmon must have put these Skylar chargers in. So we've got chargers, we've got the old mass combis there, or actually that's not a combi, that's a battery charger, 24 volt battery charger right there. That's probably for engine start batteries. Inverter bypasses up there. I think I rewired that lot. And battery switches all along. Inverter switches, that's right, for shutting the 4 inverters off. So that's all, basically that's all this room houses. So it'd be really nice if the access on the starboard side was as good as the access on the port side. It's not quite. You got to crawl into this, you got to crawl in here to get to this stabilizer. But it's there, it's not too bad. And then I think, I worked on these too. So we've got laundry here. So washer and dryer. I wonder if it's still squeaking. And then there's I think a freezer, oh yeah, look. So one thing I did find that was a bit awkward was, even though running wires and plumbing and what have you up forward in that area was easy, I found that trying to get wires back from this area back into the engine room, not quite so easy. This bulkhead is pretty solid, so getting stuff through there is pretty tricky. Here we are in the engine room. It's kind of a packed engine room. There's a lot going on in here. When you first come down here, it looks cool. It's all here. I pretty much know what it all is, and in some regards, I sort of like having it all close by. But let me tell you something. I have had to do this many times on this boat. You're sort of wondering where to put your foot, and if you're not quite as agile as me, then it's not easy to get into this corner. And for some reason, I've found myself doing a lot of stuff in this corner. What is that? I've never used this ladder. It's sort of awkward getting in and out from this ladder. If you want to work on the wing engine, which I've done a couple of things on here, not much, it's really kind of awkward to get to it. This is where I think, a lot of the Nordhavns that I've done shine in comparison, because it's, okay, so you've got a lot of living space in this boat, and other than the salon, which is a bit small, I feel like they've compromised a little bit on the engine room. It is quite difficult to get to stuff. So what have I done in here? Well, one of the first things I did, other than the inverters and rewiring things because they got the wiring all screwed up, was I replaced these regulators here for the alternators, and then I ended up having to replace this fuel filter on the main engine. This is a 6125 12.5 litre 6125 John Deere engine. I like this engine. Nordhavn have used this engine on a lot of their boats too. This is the engine that Lugger used to build the 1276. So this was the power plant 6125 that became the 1276 Lugger. That I think I've said it's my favorite engine. I think it's the best engine that probably Nordhavn ever used in one of their boats, the 1276, and it's based on this. So although, having said that, this is a 525 horsepower version, so I think it runs up to about 2100 RPM, so it's quite a lot of horsepower that they're drawing out of this thing, and I almost think that it's overpowered. This boat will run at I think Tom said like 11.5 knots, something like that. It's pretty quick. You're ploughing a lot of water, but he does tell me, and I did notice this when I ran the boat a year or so ago, very little wake. So that tells me that the whole design is very, very good. Tracking of the boat is very, very good. I would say better than most of the Nordhavns that I've been on, and it was a refreshing change to get on this boat and get behind the wheel. because it tracks beautifully. So that is a huge, gold star for Selene, and certainly on this boat. Now I don't have much experience outside of this and the Selene 60. But yeah, going back to the layout in the engine room, there's a lot in here, there's a lot going on, and it's all jammed together. Now, same on the 60. The 60 does not have a wing engine. The 60 that's up here, it's over at Skyline, is it has a hydraulic PTO off of the generator, which is where Matthew's sitting. He's sort of sitting on top of the generator there. That has a PTO. This boat does not. And that hydraulic drive will engage the shaft and drive the main shaft. But this is where it sort of gets interesting. The first time that I got on a boat that a Selene that had that system on it, I sort of thought to myself, I don't. It has a power assisted steering, and the power assisted steering works off of a hydraulic pump that's running off of the main engine. So when your main engine quits, you lose your power assisted steering. So the whole idea of having a backup drive that runs off the generator to drive the shaft and drive the boat is great, except you can't steer it anymore. Well, you can steer it with the autopilot, but you really don't have any wheel control of the boat because, and I've looked into this, and there's a number of Selenes out there that have, certainly the ones that I've looked at, I'm sure there's more. If you have a Selene, I'd be curious to hear from you. Is that a thing, where the backup drive gets you home but you got no steering, so you have to use the autopilot to do it? Because I think with the autopilot, at least your autopilot pump is back in the LAS, and that will put oil into the steering system. But if you try and turn the wheel, it's like, I don't know, 35 turns lock to lock or something stupid like that. I mean, it just doesn't work. So I think that was an oversight. And actually the boat that I found it on, I called the surveyor, because it had been sold not that long previously, and I called the surveyor and I said, did you figure this out? And no, because you know what, when they ran the backup drive, they still had the main engine idling. Well, if the main engine's idling, you've got steering. As soon as you shut the main engine off, no steering. So anyway, that's just an observation. Hydraulic cooling pump down here. Obviously we talked about the fact that this has ABT stabilizers and thrusters. So this is your American bow thruster tank reservoir with a suction line going down to the pump. This is where the hydraulic oil is cooled through this cooler right here. It's nice to see that somebody's been changing the zincs. Well done, Tom. This looks like it's part of the Maritron system there. So that's an interesting place to have the box. Normally on a Nordhavn, the ABT stabilizer box is up under the dash. So on this boat, I've discovered this the other day because I was trying to troubleshoot it over the phone, and I was like, it must be under the dash somewhere. Tom's like, no, I think it's in my engine room. I couldn't remember, but here it is down here. So pretty easy to get to. Pretty hot down here too. So anyway, so let's talk about fuel systems, because one of the things that Nordhavn is known for are their fuel systems, and I really do think that they have done a fine job on fuel systems. And the Selene 60 that showed up, it was probably 2 years ago now, one of the first jobs that I had to do on that boat, SD captains who do a great job moving boats around the US, they brought that 60 into Anacortes, and just before they got in, they had problems with the boat. The main engine quit, the generator quit, the small generator, because it has two generators also, that one was turned because it doesn't have a wing engine. It's in this location right here, quite difficult to get to. That had issues, and I discovered, and I had discovered it on this boat as well, and I said to him it's probably the same thing, that in these fuel manifolds over here, if Matthew looks over on the port side of the engine room, these fuel manifolds, there were O-rings in there that were Buna rubber O-rings, and they were failing. And air was getting in through the O-rings, And of course, when the tanks are full, we've got 2 tanks here, one on port, one on starboard, so one in here and one in here. Those 2 tanks are for a total, I think, of 2,200 gallons. When the fuel tanks are full, it doesn't take that much to pull the fuel out of the tank, because it actually pulls out of the top of the tank. Now, some of the Nordhavns are like that too, like the 57 and the 62 particularly. They have pickup straws or pickup tubes that pull the fuel up to the top of the tank over the top. The difference on the Nordhavn, those particular Nordhavns, is that they have a supply manifold that has a boost pump attached to it, and you can actually push the fuel into you can draw the fuel out of a different dip tube. And by the way, those dip tubes, the dip tube that comes from on the fuel transfer system is longer, so it goes all the way to the bottom of the tank. So if you run out of fuel, you can actually get more fuel by turning on the transfer pump or the boost pump, and you can suck fuel out of the tank from a deeper depth all the way to the bottom. The idea, of course, is that with the transfer pump for polishing fuel, you get all the junk out of the bottom of the tank. The Selene doesn't have that. The Selene doesn't have the ability to push that fuel into the supply manifold. We probably could change that, but I did make a change on here. In fact, there's a blue fuel hose. I'm going to climb back over here. It's not very graceful. Okay, so this is the supply manifold here, and the O-rings that were failing, and apparently it's a Selene thing because I heard that other people had the same problem. Now I was the one that discovered it first on this boat, and then we found the same thing on that other Selene 60. And when the fuel tank gets low, it takes a lot more to suck the fuel up the dip tube, over the top, and then down to the manifold, and then down to the engine. And when you start pulling fuel from the bottom of the tank, there's a lot more chance that you're going to pull air in here, and that's what was happening. That was what was happening on this boat to begin with, and then it happened on that 60 Selene also. Now, we added this hose here for Tom so that he can actually, and this is the way he runs the boat now, we used a spare fitting down here so that we're pulling off the base of the tank, so that we're not subject to those big vacuums that cause air to get in by pulling it out of the top of the tank. I think we also solved the problem by changing the O-rings in here and resealing everything. But I did find that it is quite difficult, the way this boat is plumbed, to bleed the engines, especially when you've got low fuel. Now, when you've got full tanks, it's not such an issue, but when you've got low fuel, I'd love for somebody to tell me how to do it. I figured it out with a vacuum pump. I could pull the fuel over the top by taking off one of these fittings. I could pull the fuel, because what you want to try and do in the supply manifold, this is the supply manifold here, you want to pull solid fuel down through here and then get solid fuel all the way to the engine. But the tendency is, obviously, you want to try and get fuel to the engine up over the top and get all the air out of it. That's a lot of sucking to get all that air out, and it's a real pain in the butt. On a Nordhavn with a gravity feed system, no issues, especially when you've got full fuel tanks, of course, because it just pushes it all down. I mean, it's so easy to bleed the engine. All right, so it's really important. I don't know if I can stress this enough. I've talked about putting this in a video before and we haven't done it, but it's really important when you own a boat with a diesel engine to know how to bleed it. Now, I'm sure there's people watching this that know all about bleeding engines. But for those of you that don't know about diesel engines, if you get air bubbles in the fuel system between the tank and the engine or anywhere around the engine, then you won't be able to get it started. So basically what happens is there's a fuel pump, and on this engine it's a common rail engine, the fuel pump's down here. That fuel pump pushes fuel to the injectors, and you at real high pressure. If you get an air bubble in the supply between the pump and the injector, when the pump's pushing, the air bubble compresses, and the fuel pressure at the injector isn't high enough to open the injector and spray the fuel into the cylinder. So you got to get the air out of there so that when the pump is pushing, it's the same pressure at the pump end as it is on the injector end, and you get the fuel into the engine. Anytime you get an air bubble in there, it's all over. It doesn't happen. Don't think it's not going to happen to you, because even the best of us run out of fuel once in a while. It happens. And unfortunately it happens, well, I'm sure SD captains have had it a bunch of times, especially if they've been delivering Selenes apparently. But when you run low on fuel and you get a little air bubble coming in one of your fittings and it gets sucked down into the engine and the engine quits, you got to get that air out of there before you can get it started again. So you've got to know how to do that. You've got to know. I had a call from Hawaii just 2 days ago from a guy in Hawaii who had run his engine out of fuel. Previous to that, it was an MTU, Series 60. And previous to that, we had the same issue on a boat in Florida about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. Very, very difficult to get an MTU. They're not self-bleeding engines. You've got to know where to crack the fittings and how to get the fuel through. So it happened to me a year and a half ago. It's a long story, and I felt like an idiot. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been working on Nordhavns for 20 years, and it still happened to me. It was an oversight on my part, and I feel a little silly. But anyway, it happens. But the most important thing was, when it happened to me, I knew instantly how to get that engine bled again, get fuel to it, and get it running again. And if you've got a boat with a diesel engine, specifically a single engine like this, single engine trawler like this, you better know how to bleed the engine. And you better know how to bleed the engine with low fuel tanks too, right? It's different if you've got lots of fuel in the boat to what it is if you have a low fuel level. So think about that, and I'd be interested in your comments on that, because not everybody knows how to do it. And if you don't, or you're unsure, you should go through the process. You should do it. You should run air through, get air through, leave the top off the rake, or run until it runs dry, and then bleed it again, to make sure that you know that you're familiar with the process. One of the things that I did notice when I was bleeding this engine was on the 6125 engine, there is a fitting down on the down on the filter down there where you bleed the fuel out. And normally you put on a little bleeder device with a hose on it that you run into a cup. I thought it was pretty cool. They actually put that fitting down there and they plumbed it back to here with a pressure gauge on it, so that when you're cranking the engine you can see what the pressure is on the fuel return line on the filter down there. That I thought was rather ingenious. I've never seen that on a Nordhavn, haven't seen that on any other boat, but I thought when I saw it on here I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Really nicely engineered to make life easy when you're bleeding the engine. So what else have we got back here? We do have a fuel polishing system here, fuel in, fuel out, so there's separate pickups for fuel polishing, but it doesn't, I don't believe that it's plumbed in a way so that you can push the fuel into the supply manifold. It should be. Alright, so that's probably enough about fuel systems on here. Alright, we're going to work our way to the back of the engine room here. This looks like a little 6kW with an automatic start on the small generator, and then this looks like it might be maybe a 20kW or something. That's probably a 20. All nice and clean in there. Wet exhaust boat, no dry stack. Wet exhaust, and he's got a hurricane heat back up here in this area, which takes up quite a lot of space, so it does look a bit cluttered back here. He's got remote starts on his generators, so you can get things going down here when you're working on them. I brought these pictures down here. They were up in the pilot house. I thought that this was quite interesting, because when you look at these pictures of the underwater profile of the Selene 59, you can see how close to the back of the boat the rudder is, right there, the propeller and rudder. This is one of the original pictures of this boat. And then you can see the profile of the boat, and that's why that boat tracks so beautifully. And it's actually quite shallow draft. I think at about 5'8" is what they're saying. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that's accurate, but certainly by the pictures it looks like it's a fairly shoal draft boat, which is quite good for the Bahamas. Alright, and Matthew is backing out of the engine room now. He's going astern, so I'm looking astern. And there is a super nice little utility, another utility area, the lazarette. Well, it doesn't really have a lazarette. The lazarette's where Matthew's on his knees right now. There's not very much headroom in there, but it is superbly finished with teak, and you can get to all the steering gear. The water maker is back there, and there's even a workbench, and you got a little bench back in here with storage stuff, and then in these lockers you got storage and toolbox back in here. A little bit messy right now, but you've got your a nice little toolbox, and then in here that's more storage. You've got your exhaust system coming through there, probably stuff for the hurricane heater coming through there as well. I see the exhaust coming out on the starboard side. Now, back under here, my Clearline hat, by the way, thank you Clearline, Electro C. We're a Clearline dealer, and we've put in quite a few of these Clearline systems because we won't be needing them up here in Anacortes as much, but I talked about a little bit in the 64 video, and I'm going to do a video on Clearline, I think, because you know, we've put a few of them in and they are a superb addition. If you've got a boat that you're keeping in South Florida or down in the tropics where there's a lot of growth, you know, you might want to consider Clearline. You might want to call us and talk to us about it. I see that they don't have a very big presence in social media or on YouTube, but I'm going to talk about them because I think it's a great piece of equipment. It is rather pricey, but it saves a lot of headaches down in South Florida. So, access back here to your steering gear, twin high Nautic rams on a beautiful stainless tiller arm. I can't believe that they polished that sucker the way they did. Anyway, that's all nicely polished up. I do sort of feel like the bolt back there is a bit minuscule, but you know, it's been on there all this time and it hasn't broken. And then we got our autopilot pumps and directional valve for the stern thruster. I have a tides seal on the rudder post. I don't know why people do that. Why would you put a tides? I'm not a big fan of having a dripless seal on a rudder post. Maybe, I don't know. I just don't think it's a great idea. I'm better off having just a regular packing gland on there and tightening it up. It doesn't need to be. You don't need to over-engineer these things. So this boat does not have power assisted steering by the looks of it. Now when you turn your autopilot on, you've obviously got power steering, but it doesn't have the regular power assisted steering like I was talking about on these other boats. So I don't know why, but maybe somebody could explain that to me. Why do they put power assisted steering on the boats that don't have wing engines, that don't have power assist when the main engine quits, and why on this boat that does have a wing engine? I don't know. Anyway, we'll figure it out. So you got your breakers for your shore power down here. You also have some stainless steel manifolds that I mentioned at one point. I didn't think it was a very good idea. You know, Nordhavn does that as well, but they do seem to be. They look like they're probably original, and they look like they're in reasonable shape. Pretty good access to the stern thruster tube back there. There's a bent axis motor on that bell housing, which looks like it would be reasonably easy to get to if needed, which is good. And then I've noticed this in several spots around the boat. They have these beautiful stainless etched plates with the hull number. There's one in the pilot house, there's one back here. I noticed one somewhere else on the boat too. They are very nicely done. So I think we're going to go back up to the salon for a little bit. I want to talk about Nordhavn, Selene. Why would you buy a Nordhavn to cross oceans? Why wouldn't you buy Selene? Let's go on up.
Another one.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, one more of these little plates. They are beautifully done. I mean, you know, another thing to come down and polish. In conclusion, so we're done walking around the boat. I'm impressed on the whole. They're quite glitzy, you know, a little bit small as we talked about, but they're well done. They're solid. I think if there was any concern about a Selene not being solid or seaworthy, we should put that to rest right now. These things are built like tanks. They really are. I think this is 140,000 pounds. It is a solid boat. In the early days, when I was working on Nordhavns back in the early 2000s, you know, I was hearing stories about Selenes, and I know that Selenes had some issues, I think, in the early days with gel coat. I know that some of them had to be peeled. Something that I don't think, I mean, we have peeled a Nordhavn, but you know, it is not common. And I think there were a number of Selenes that probably had issues that gave the company perhaps a bad name. I've also seen, and a lot of Selenes have dark colored hulls, and print through is a real problem on boats with dark colored hulls. I've seen print through on Nordhavns as well. In fact, I've seen bulkheads showing through on Nordhavn 64s and 68s. I know Nordhavn had issues with that. It's not a structural thing, but it is unsightly. And I've seen some pretty unsightly Selenes where you walk down the boat and you can see basically the roving sticking through the gel coat. Why? You know, it can be dealt with. Get the boat in the paint shed after the cure process, you know, after everything's settled, get in there and fair it up and paint the boat. And this one you can't see print through. I mean, I wasn't really looking for it, but it certainly doesn't jump out at you. This boat has a beautiful paint job and it's dark. But I think that's partly due to the fact that it's been up here in the Pacific Northwest where it doesn't get super hot. So that is an advantage of having a dark colored hull up here in the Pacific Northwest. Why do people not buy Selenes when they want to cross oceans? Well, that's probably because Nordhavn has cornered the market. And I think, you know, the marketing, taking a Nordhavn 40 around the world, right? I mean, we all know they're solid and capable boats. Taking a Nordhavn 40 around the world had a huge impact on the trawler cruising community. And then in 2004, when Nordhavn did their transatlantic rally, you know, with 17 boats, not all Nordhavns, of course. There was a twin-engine Krogan 58 that crossed. Dennis Fox took his across as well. And there was another boat, I can't remember exactly what it was. But the majority of the boats were Nordhavns, and that put Nordhavn on the map as far as, if you're going to go cross oceans, buy a Nordhavn. And so that's what people are still doing. Can Selenes do what Nordhavns have done? I'm sure. You know, it's got enough fuel, it's got the same engine, it's built like a tank, it handles beautifully in a sea, so I think they're quite capable. I think somebody should put a group of Selenes together and go cross an ocean, and perhaps that would change things. I'm just saying. I think, you know, right now, if somebody came to me and said, James, I want to go cross an ocean, I would say, yeah, you probably need a Nordhavn. So I'm sort of gone down that path as well. But the more time I spend on these Selenes, I think the more likely I am to say, well, you got options. Maybe I should put a Selene group together and we go cross to Hawaii or something. Maybe that's the answer. Anyway, I thought it was interesting to have the opportunity to look around this boat. I know that this is another sort of out of my area of expertise, and although, you know, with Nordhavns I have a lot of background there that I've done trips on them, and I know for sure what I'm talking about. I don't know as much about Selenes, but I'm just sort of scratching the surface, but I think they're very capable boats. It's been interesting talking to Tom because he has the experience of having a Nordhavn beforehand. He had the Nordhavn 52 before he had this, and he may well go back to another Nordhavn. We've talked about it. So, you know, he certainly hasn't ruled them out, but he certainly loves this boat. He loves the way it performs, and, you know, he has no intention of selling it anytime soon. So, I appreciate you all watching. Give us the big old thumbs up, hopefully, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time, probably on a Nordhavn, I would guess. Thank you, Matthew, for doing the video, and we'll see you all soon.